from the station that's on your side. This is News 12, first at 5.
Tension today in a Brunswick courtroom where 3 men are being tried for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery.
I don't know who Mr. Jackson, Reverend Jackson's pastoring here.
A defense attorney asking Jesse Jackson to leave days after he apologized for saying he didn't want any more black pastors in the courtroom.
But first, investigators are trying to figure out exactly what happened after they found a dead man tied up in the basement of an Aiken County home.
Now, right now, they don't have any suspects. They're calling this a suspicious death. Police officers in Jackson went to the home on 3rd Street for a well-being check. This was yesterday. They say they smelled a foul odor coming from the home and found the victim's body down in the basement.
The victim was already beginning to decompose. They say his hands and feet were bound. The coroner tells us the body will be autopsied in Newberry to determine exactly how he died. No one has been detained, and again, no suspects yet, but of course we are continuing to follow this.
We're bringing you continued coverage about a lawsuit filed over toxic gas in Augusta.
Right now, 24 people are suing a plant that sterilizes medical equipment in Augusta, right near Augusta Regional Airport and Finney Swamp, claiming this company knowingly exposed them to ethylene oxide, a leading cause of cancer.
Today we're hearing from the attorneys for the first time who are representing people really all over the nation in cases like the one here. Sloan O'Connor is on the story for us today.
And as we've alleged, we absolutely expect to prove at trial that KPR knew about these issues with ethylene oxide, knew how harmful they were to the folks, and continued on using it in the ways that we allege for decades without warning anybody, without doing anything, certainly nothing sufficient to protect folks in the community.
Ben Richmond is a managing partner at Edelson PC, a law firm based in Chicago that is investigating cases related to ethylene oxide around the country. Over the past few years, they identified the KPR facility in Augusta as one they allege having serious issues. So they partnered with a firm closer to home, based in Atlanta.
It stands out that, they knew. For a long time they knew. And your dollar bottom line does not mean more than somebody's life.
Working alongside people like Victoria Snow, who lived and worked within 6 miles of KPR for around 16 years.
Scheduled a mammogram and a biopsy, and that's when I ended up getting diagnosed with breast cancer.
Victoria now has undergone chemo, radiation, a mastectomy, and hysterectomy. All medical conditions they claim are wrongfully caused by her inhaling emissions of ethylene oxide.
Process of taking my life back from what they took from me. But it's just a waiting game. That's stressful.
A waiting game that's all too familiar. Back in August of 2018, the Department of Human Services identified Willowbrook, Illinois as a public health problem because of ethylene oxide concentrations in their air. In October of 2018, 3 senators from Illinois wrote to the head of the EPA to hold field hearings in communities affected by ethylene oxide across the country. Most of those hearings never happened. It took mayors, city trustees, the Illinois Attorney General, the Illinois Department of Public Health, and Illinois EPA. All of them gathered the information and data for cancer clusters and air testing needed to ultimately seal the plant in Willowbrook in February of 2019. But few field hearings have happened near other plants across the country. In Augusta, Sloan O'Connor, on your side.
Of course, this is a developing story, and now we're looking into what the EPA knows and what action they should have been taking all these years.
Taking a look out.
You're watching News 12 on your side.
From the station that's on your side, News 12, first at 5, continues.
More restaurants, grocery stores, and shopping. It's what people in South Augusta say they want, just not right in their backyards.
I think it's just going to make it a mess out here. And it's not going to be, you can hear the birds. You hear you hear all of this. It's very serene, very quiet, and it's like this all the time.
Now, that is a neighbor in the Spirit Point subdivision who we spoke to back in June. Developers were planning to build a community right by her house.
We decided to check back in on those plans and learn things did not play out quite the way those developers had hoped. Our Celeste Springer is live in that neighborhood off Brown Road.
So, Celeste, what happened out there?
Well, somewhere behind these trees, there was a new development that was supposed to plant its own roots. But we found out shortly after public comment, the developer who wanted to put that neighborhood back to back with this one, well, he backed out himself. Commissioner Brandon Garrett tells us that the over 400 home project was met with some concerns, mostly worries over the fact that the new neighborhood traffic would have gone through the existing neighborhoods. We took to social media today to ask people living in South Augusta what developments they do and don't want to see. By far, people are begging for more restaurants and grocery stores, but in order to get those, Commissioner Garrett says there has to be some give and take.
As I started working through these processes, the one thing that developers constantly come back to me with, grocery stores, restaurants, retail, all follow rooftops. And, it's not just any rooftop either. It's, let's get good quality housing in areas.
Okay, so developments for here didn't work out, but there are two in the works that are. Coming up in the next half hour, I'm breaking down those plans for those developments, as well as what a local business owner is hoping to do to bring a new restaurant to the South Augusta area.
Celeste, thanks for the live update there from South Augusta. Time to check weather now in First Alert. Students in Jenkins County returning to school tomorrow after a few days off. This comes after school was closed because of threats and safety concerns. The school superintendent saying they've been working on a safety plan to make sure the return is safe. That includes training for faculty and staff with Homeland Security today. And starting tomorrow, when the students go back, there'll be law enforcement present during pickup and drop off. And metal detectors. Students cannot bring book bags, and the doors to the schools will remain locked.
A possible federal law on violent offenders.
3 Georgia inmates are still on the run. The GBI issuing an alert over the weekend after 5 inmates escaped from the Pulaski County Law Enforcement Center. Police say each of the inmates have a violent history, and so far the GBI says 2 are back in custody. On your screen now are the 3 remaining inmates. That is Tyree Williams, Brandon Pooler, and Dennis Pinnix Jr. The U.S. Marshal's Office offering a reward up to $5,000 for information leading to the arrest of any of these men.
The White House estimates the nearly 1 million children ages 5 to 11 have their first COVID shot. This comes as school mask mandates are starting to disappear in some school districts.
As Mandy Gaither reports, experts are encouraging more parents to get their children vaccinated.
Some schools are rolling back mask mandates, but is it too soon?
I mean, the masks are uncomfortable, but it's for safety. If I wear my mask, that means I get to see my friends. I'll just wear a mask.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines have not changed. Students, staff, teachers, and visitors to K-12 schools are recommended to wear masks indoors regardless of vaccination status, just as kids 5 to 11 years old are now eligible to get their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine.
Getting vaccinated also helps keep our schools open, children's sports going, and helps our children maintain a more normal lifestyle.
A review of school records finds hundreds of districts around the country have made masks optional, including some schools in Georgia, Louisiana, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Kentucky, often citing declines in COVID-19 cases. But experts say the virus is still a threat to young children.
Larger numbers of children and adolescents have been getting infected, and too many of those children have been getting seriously ill and sadly even dying.
The Ohio Department of Education says about 68% of school districts there have dropped mask mandates, and in Texas, schools aren't even allowed to require masks, although some districts like Dallas have ignored the state and kept the mandates. For today's Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Locally, Richmond County schools still require masks, while Columbia and Aiken County schools do not.
Sports coming up next. It is senior day for the Dogs this weekend. Jordan Davis talking about his final game in Athens right after the break, first at 5.
And we have seen a few fires.
Oh, how great is this? A huge moment for 2 Albany State University alumni, mother and son. It is the moment Ray Curtis Petty Jr. found out he passed the bar exam, a moment made more impactful after his sister died from sickle cell anemia last year.
And just right after she died, he had to return to both law school classes and his military orders as a paralegal in the Air Force. But he failed the bar the first time around, so when he got these results the second time, it was joy and excitement for the whole family.
Born and raised in Albany, Georgia, and just so that people can see our stories and be like, you know what, I can go to school there, I can succeed there, I can become something there. It's not about me at all. Just being in this profession is a profession of servitude.
Both Petty and his mom say they feel very fortunate to have both graduated from the historically black institution. Oh, but I just love it so much. I mean, their excitement is
I love that, yeah.
palpable.
You can't stop the smile there.
I know.
That's so much hard work, and for him to have so much else on the plate, personally and with work, he's spread thin, and that's a tough test. He's a brand new attorney.
Yeah, good for him. Congratulations to him. And Riley, it is a cold evening out there ahead of us. We should definitely bring in the plants.
Absolutely, Meredith. We do have frost advisories in effect for mid-peel weather. A warmer afternoon tomorrow, getting into the 70s. Take a look at some changes heading our way later in the week in just about 10 minutes.
So we know it's going to get cold out there, but imagine a home with no hot water or air, raw sewage leaks, holes in the ceiling where smoke detectors should be, and bathtubs that back up with other tenants' used water.
Now imagine living in conditions like this and paying hundreds of dollars a month for that privilege. Our I team found hundreds of violations, in some cases more than a decade of documented problems for some of Augusta's biggest nuisance properties. A couple of these properties have over 200 violations. At what point would you take it before the commission to make a decision on whether they should have a business license or not?
Well, and that's a good question.
Our I team uncovered more than 700 violations stacked up at these 3 properties in Richmond County alone over the past 3 years. Pineview Mobile Home Park, the Enclave Apartments, and Azalea Park Apartments. Our I team found in each case the property manager was repeatedly cited, but never the owner. And even with hundreds of violations on file, we found all 3 business licenses active in good standing. That is, until our I team started asking some questions, and now changes are being made after we exposed a long-distance hurdle crippling the process. It's a little eerie driving through Pineview Mobile Home Park. Some of the trailers have been abandoned for so long, Mother Nature is starting to reclaim them. But every now and then, you'll spot signs of life.
Got a pipe that's busted there, sewers leaking, and we got a neck problem in there because of that.
Over the past 3 years, our I team found Pineview Mobile Home Park racked up 279 code enforcement violations. And that's just the documented ones. Clint Kitchens knows there are more. What does code enforcement say when they come out?
I haven't told them because I don't want to get evicted. We don't have nowhere to go.
It kind of puts us between a rock and a hard place because on one end, we want something done, but on the other hand, you got to look at the families that could potentially be displaced because of that type of action.
Code enforcement has slowly condemned the properties one by one, but it's taken more than 10 years for the process to play out. And as you can see, those abandoned, empty eyesores are still here. Back in 2012, the death of a 5-month-old spurred action at Pineview Mobile Home Park after a baby died in a trailer here. The coroner said he was covered in roach and rodent bites. We spoke to code enforcement about the issues back then.
A large majority of the mobile homes do not meet the minimum requirement.
More than 9 years later.
We got a leakage over here on the other side. You can look at it, and he told them about it. They can fix that. Our toilet, we have to pour water in our toilet, we can't flush it. We have to pour water and flush it.
But every month, Clint Kitchens pays his $490 in rent so he and his cousin have a roof and running water. Sometimes even hot water.
We had to pay $200-something to fix our own hot water heater.
You paid that?
Yes, ma'am. I just went ahead and paid to fix it, and I didn't take nothing off the rent because I was scared of getting evicted. I didn't want to get evicted.
Our I team found a documented pattern of problems spanning years for this property under the owner, Waterman Florence Trust out of Los Angeles.
Since I've been manager, we have not taken the property thus far to take action against the business license. Although we are close, I have not.
These are photos inside of Azalea Park Apartments, a property that's racked up 206 code enforcement violations in 3 years.
I couldn't stay there any longer because it was unlivable.
Code enforcement agreed. They condemned her apartment, but that meant Gary and Henry had to find another place to stay.
It saddens me that people force themselves to live that way to keep from being homeless.
People like Tawana Lewis, who lived at Azalea Parks for 3 years.
I didn't want to, I don't want to get emotional about it because it's, why I got to live, but it's just too much.
She lived without heating or air conditioning for about a year.
100 degrees. It was freezing. They gave me this little heater from out the office. Code enforcement said that was not acceptable at all.
And that wasn't even her biggest issue.
When they bathe next door to me, their water come up into my tub. They tried to fix, I have to cut the hot water on with the pliers.
The code violations stacked up so high in her apartment with continued failed inspections, the housing authority pulled the plug on her housing assistance payments.
There are so many families that are in this situation, and nobody is saying anything. Nobody is bringing it to the open. These landlords do not feel accountable for the upkeep of their properties. They're getting away with it.
Citation after citation addressed to the property managers, while the owners in most cases go unscathed hundreds or even thousands of miles away.
9 times out of 10, the corporate office, the owner, are going to be located out of town.
And can you not cite them if they're out of town? Can you not serve them or mail it to them?
Some cities do, but it all depends on what the judge in this jurisdiction would want to allow.
Right now, our I-team found Richmond County does not cite out-of-town property owners for code violations, even if the problems persist. Concerning, since our I-team recently uncovered out-of-state investors buying up hundreds of local properties to turn profits.
So if you can't cite the owners,
the only person that you have locally is the apartment manager or the park manager. Those are the only people that we can actually go against, is them.
I can't even determine management from us. They don't have any logos on their shirts. We don't know who is what.
They don't keep up nothing here.
With each code enforcement violation carrying up to $1,000 fine and a year in jail, the stakes are pretty high. That would be $279,000 worth of violations in 3 years for Pineview property managers to shoulder alone.
Well, whoever we issue the citation to, that is the responsible party.
yeah. It just seems like, I'm not sure if the teeth are behind it since, like you say, the property managers don't have the money to fix some of this stuff without the owners, so they're facing down jail time when, are they really even the problem?
It's the owner is the problem. But what other way can we get the owner to step up to the plate?
So since we started asking some questions about this, changes did start happening. Code enforcement did recently take action against Azalea Park Apartments business license. It's the first time in several years they've taken that step, and they are now on probation with the city. So we reached out to Surest Property Services, who manages that property. They say they are working diligently to resolve all pending matters, but if they can't get everything up to code, the city could technically pull that business license.
But it's been all these years and still no change. And we all remember the baby that lost its life there at Pineview Mobile Home Park. That's been nearly 10 years and nothing.
10 years out there, and we've been following that case with Pineview Mobile Park, Home Park through the court system, and it looks like because the owner is taking so long to get rid of some of those condemned properties, the city can go in there, bulldoze the trailers now. The judge gave them permission to do that, bill the out-of-state owner, which does affect the owner finally, but that owner still has another 6 months to get it done before the bulldozers can get started. So all the while he has his business license active with the city. It's just a mind-bogglingly slow process.
And these people are living with it every day, and we know that there's not a lot of housing available for lower-income people in Augusta right now.
And it's expensive to move. They don't have the means, so, they're between a rock and a hard place, too.
A story we'll continue to track. Well, still no arrest after a man is found dead, tied up in the basement of an Aiken County home. Here's a look at the house in Jackson. It's on 3rd Street, not far from Atomic Road. Jackson police say they responded there yesterday around 5 for a well-being check, and that's when they found the body down there in the basement. Still no word on that man's identity or any potential suspects here. We're told the body will be autopsied in Newberry to determine a cause of death.
Students in Jenkins County will return to school tomorrow after a string of threats made to the district. No book bags are allowed, only pocketbooks for personal items. Students are only allowed to bring one binder, and everything has to go through metal detectors. But the district says they're still working to find the person responsible for sending those threatening emails.
Also happening tomorrow, Augusta city leaders expected to... A land of opportunity. That's how developers say they see South Augusta.
And right now, we are keeping tabs on plans to bring in new housing and new restaurants to that area of town.
News 12 Celeste Springer live for us now from the Spirit Point neighborhood off Brown Road. And Celeste, we know there were plans for new housing around that area. So what's the status of that big project?
Well, the neighborhood here at Spirit Point is well developed, but right next door they were trying to put a new housing development. Well, we've learned that development has fallen through. The developers pulled out after neighbors here expressed concerns about the traffic flowing through their neighborhood into the new one. But even though that one is on the outs, we have two more on the way in. The owners of Diablo say the south side is hungry for options.
And in this location, Peach Orchard and Tobacco Road, you know, there's very few food options here, and so we felt like it was the right time and the right place to bring Diablo's to South Augusta.
But opening doors hasn't gone exactly according to plan.
This location has been running way behind.
Supply chain issues have delayed their opening, but South Augustans can rejoice. Slowly but surely, it's coming sometime January. It's options like this many of you told us on social media you desperately wanted. But we're told getting more places to eat usually means you'll have to put up with the new houses for people to live.
Grocery stores, restaurants, retail, all follow rooftops. And, you know, it's not just any rooftop either. It's, you know, let's get good quality housing in areas.
Commissioner Garrett says 2 new developments have been approved for South Augusta off Mike Paget Highway. It's a stretch of road littered with land available signs like these.
There are developers that are very interested in the area just because, you know, there's land available as well as opportunities there.
Opportunities and options that local business owners are happy to bring to the area.
The area was starving for a unique option for food, and we're excited to bring that here.
And so again, the development that was supposed to back up here to Spirit Point is on the outs, but I did ask for the maps on those 2 new housing developments that are supposed to go somewhere around Mike Paget Highway and Brown Road. I am still waiting to hear back from the city and those developers about those maps.
Well, let us know when you do, Celeste. We appreciate the update there. Meanwhile, Commissioner Garrett was telling us earlier that getting the infrastructure in place to support all the growth is still a big concern. Last week, he asked the utilities director for a plan to bring better access to sewer services in South Augusta. We'll keep you updated on all of this.
Heading outside now for a live